All right, we are live. So you are going to want to get to know this woman here. And you're probably going to want to be best friends with her. She has an eye for design, the definition of being a human connector. She puts her whole heart into everything she does, and not to mention a very high-level CrossFit athlete. Today, we're looking at Vancouver through the eyes of Kayla Wojick, Ontario transplant, design consultant at California Closets, and embodies the outdoor Vancouver vibrant lifestyle. If this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is about real estate and living in Vancouver, subscribe below. Welcome to my weekly series, Vancouver Through My Eyes, where I interview a local Vancouverite and we talk about what it's like to live, work, play, and invest in Vancouver. Tap the bell for notifications to be the first to hear insight from our latest guests and to keep current on all things Vancouver real estate. My name is Megan Becker, local realtor. I'm passionate about our city and helping people make moves within it. So give me a call, text, or email, and I'm excited to help you make moves in the best city in Canada. Hello, Kayla. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Meg. That was the nicest intro I've ever had anywhere.
Of course. So tell me, Ontario to Vancouver, what inspired the move?
Oh, yeah. So this was 7.5 years ago. I used to work in human resources. So I was working for the corporate office for a helicopter maintenance company in Toronto. And then there was an HR manager out in Langley that needed somebody to cover her for the year. So was lucky enough to have the opportunity offered to me. And initially I was saying, okay, well, it's just going to be a year, that's all it is. If I don't like it, I can come back. It's a really good stepping stone for my human resources career. And then after that year, I was like, okay, well, that was the best year of my life. So maybe I should do one more year. So I took a permanent job and now it's been 7.5 years. So.
Very cool. So what made you fall in love with it?
I think it was just, there's so many things. The one thing that was really great was being able to actually focus on having like a really good summer, for example. Like when I was in Toronto and living at home in the suburbs, the focus was always to make as much money as possible because I was in school during the school year and I wasn't working. So This was one of the first summers I'd had in a really long time where I was actually able to have a summer, have weekends, and not be juggling 2 different jobs. But also just having such a welcoming group of friends. And I had a couple of different friends that I had known from university that were from here. So they were back and they were very welcoming in terms of, making sure that I was invited to events. It took a little bit of time to get in there, but it was just such a well-rounded lifestyle that I was being introduced to. Still doing a lot of the things that I really enjoyed in Toronto, but then also, going camping, going hiking, and doing all these things that are way less accessible in the Toronto area.
Yeah, exactly. Did you think that you were going to fall in love with it before you moved here as much as you did?
No, I'm very connected to my family and my friends back in Ontario. So it was actually a really difficult transition through. I was on the phone with my parents all the time, all on the phone with my friends all the time, because I had this nice long commute from Langley back to the West End where I was living. And so that was a really tough adjustment. And I would say for the first 5-6 months, it was, and then of course it was, winter in Vancouver. So yeah. I was definitely having a tough time initially, but then, once you really get into the full swing of spending an entire year here and getting a full feel for it, I was like, okay, yeah, I see it. I get it. I totally understand what
Were there second thoughts? Especially, missing your family. Winter here is tough. There's not a lot of sun. Were there second thoughts about, this isn't for me, going back home, or?
I think it was good to know that I was initially only going to be here for a year, because it helped me kind of pace myself to say like, okay, I just need to, continue to put myself out there. Yeah. Just make it the year and then decide. But it would probably, again, took me like a good 5-6 months to realize that I actually was like really enjoying my time here. And probably that same amount of time, like, okay, yeah, I do want to extend it. So yeah, it took a bit for sure.
Cool. So you mentioned you first lived in the West End, which you're currently at right now. What made you choose that area when you first moved here?
My previous boss, who was my my manager at the helicopter maintenance company, she is from Ontario as well. So she had initially moved out here. She knows, both the areas quite well. And when I was talking to her initially about where I was going to stay, I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll try to find a place in Surrey or New West and just kind of be closer to the office, but also be close enough to, downtown. A lot of my friends were living in Vancouver. And she had said to me, Kayla, you're here for a year. Make it count, enjoy your weekends, suck up the commute. I was only working 7 to 3:30 and I was going against traffic.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's not that bad. Enjoy your time here fully. And that means live in the city, live among people. So I'm really glad I took her advice on that.
So what do you love about the West End? I know a lot of people, I've had a lot of friends move here from other provinces or countries, and the West End, hands down, is probably the most common area people settle in first.
It's awesome. I've lived in 2 different areas of the West End. So more so what I guess would be termed Davie Village now. I've been here for about 5 years. And then I was at Robson and Denman for 3-ish of those years.
Okay.
So initially I had just connected with my old roommate at the time on Kijiji. And I was also looking at another place in Cole Harbour. And I just went to this place specifically. I was like, you know what? I know I want to be downtown. And then when I met her and I saw the place and I, got a bit of a feel for the area, I was like, yeah, this is it. I love it. Super easy to walk around. There's so much, so many just accessible things. I had my own bank. There was a grocery store there, Whole Foods across the street. Like everything you needed was within like a block radius. So, and then really easy to kick over to Georgia so I could get on the highway really quickly. So it was just like a great fit overall.
Perfect. So you mentioned you met your roommate on Kijiji. I know a lot of people when they move here, they are renting and they're potentially looking for a roommate. And some people are. I've had the conversations of, how do you vet people? Like, what was your mindset, kind of searching for someone that you didn't know?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. I know that she was equally, skeptical like how this is actually going to work. It was really cool. She had initially called me, so we had a chat over the phone. So that was nice to just, and I was like, okay, I think the vibes are good here. And then when I actually showed up to meet her in person, I guess she just wasn't necessarily what I had expected over the phone, but she was just 100 times better.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, it was great. It was, I ended up actually having the Cole Harbour place also offer me a spot, and that person was awesome too, really sweet. She and I were a similar age and seemed to have similar lifestyles. But there was something else about this place and about my old roommate that I was like, I really want to be here. It just feels like home. But yeah, I mean, it definitely, I've had other friends that have had more of an issue finding a place or finding a good fit for roommates and things like that. It's definitely not easy. And yeah, you have to be open to, maybe finding it in a little bit more of a non-conventional way. But now I think it's quite easy after being here for so many years. When I have friends that move into town or things like that, I find there's almost always somebody who's offering up a roommate's situation, or they need somebody to come in, or they have a place that they're moving out of. So a lot of those connections are a lot more easily made, and I find everyone's a little bit more comfortable when they actually have a connection to that person. So
yeah, for sure. Speaking of connections, like I mentioned in the intro, since I met you, I've seen you just as a connector. You have a lot of different friends. You're really great at making people feel welcome. You've invited me to lots of different things, and I really appreciate that. And I think a lot of people have the misconception that Vancouver is really hard to meet people. And so I'd love for you to share, because it does. It looks like you have lots of different friends groups. You're kind of the life of the party. People love being around you. So maybe I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Totally. Yeah. And thank you. So sweet. I think that was something that I had always done in Toronto, was I ended up having a lot of friends from sort of different avenues of just I look for things through work, or we went to university together. So it was a similar thing here. I definitely did find that there were some, maybe specific people or groups that were a little bit harder to kind weasel my way into. I had a couple of main friend groups when I moved here. And yeah, it was like there were definitely a few people that I think expected, Ontario transplant, oh, whatever, like she's not taking this seriously. She's not going to be here. So why would I invest my time? Which is totally fair. It's not that they aren't nice. It's just like, they're not like trying to be your best friend right away.
Yeah.
So you really have to continuously remind people that you are here and that, ideally you're here to stay. That's really fun too. But you just have to, keep being like, hey, like, how's it going? Do you want to hang out? And then as soon as people remember that you're here, they're more likely to invite you to things. So it's like when you're in, and you just, especially for the first 6 months, you have to say yes to everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I have noticed more so here than back in Toronto, people that grew up here are old friends. Like they have known each other since preschool. They have their family friends. Like, those are really, really long-standing friendships. So, as somebody who's new, who's coming in, it can be really difficult, when we're all so busy to begin with and everyone's just trying to continue to maintain the connections that they have. It can be really challenging to be like, hey, I would like to be your new friend. Do you have time for me? So, so you really do have to make an effort.
Yeah. I think that's a big thing is understanding, people, it's not that people are rude or, don't want anything to do with you. I find it is, people are busy, and
Totally.
To make that effort, make yourself available, say yes, exactly like you said there. It's kind of like sales. Selling yourself. And, speaking of sales, you are a design consultant at California Closets. And I would love to hear a little bit more perspective on, you mentioned you moved here, you had a job in HR, why the transition into California Closets here, and maybe chat a little bit about what opportunities Vancouver kind of afforded you work-wise.
Yeah, it was quite an interesting transition. I had, after the helicopter maintenance maternity leave cover, I was working at a finance company in human resources as well. And it was very, very different because suddenly I was like going from being the only on-site person to within a group, but a very isolated group. And a lot of the employees that I took care of, so to speak, were in Toronto. And there was an HR manager there on site. So I was a lot more removed suddenly. Right. And I think just, the finance industry is a bit of a tough one too. It was just like a culture that I didn't feel like quite fit me as well. Right. And I think, the combination of the two, I was like, I feel like I'm not really making a difference, and maybe just like, this isn't a good fit for me. So once I had decided that, I started reaching out to other job opportunities. I had been interviewing, I think, for like 4 or 5 months before I actually found this new opportunity. A friend of mine has been with California Closets for over a decade now. And she had said to me on more than one occasion, you'd be amazing at this job. Like, you should really apply, like at least get a feel for it. And I was like, well, I don't have a sales background. I don't have a design background. So tell me why you think it's a good fit. And she said, you know what? It's really all about people. Yeah. And that was the thing that I felt like I was kind of missing with the new position that I had with the finance company, was suddenly I wasn't talking to anybody. And I will often refer to myself as painfully extroverted. Like, I love being around people. I get so much energy from going into consultations with clients and just seeing how excited that they get about the process that we have. And knowing that I am actually making a difference to them on a regular basis. It just like, it's such a feel good situation. And I do really find like 95% of the time I come out of my meeting so energized. And it really takes me out of, if there's other stuff happening, on a personal level, that's like not the most ideal. There's something about kind of taking myself out of that zone for a couple of hours while I'm with clients. And then I come out of it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. Like, this is so great. So it's, I've heard some other friends as well say, it can be really challenging finding work here because it is, a smaller city. Everybody does tend to know each other. But I found for me, I've been so grateful to have a connection that has allowed me to not only find a new opportunity that I really love, but also something that's out of my educational background. Like I, did my undergrad in sociology, and then I did my I did a sort of a certificate degree in human resources.
Okay.
So something, never in my wildest dreams am I going to find a job that is so creative that normally, interior design grads from BCIT are being hired. So, super, super grateful for that.
Yeah. Oh, that's very cool. And really interesting about what you said about, kind of maybe not having the best day and going into a consult. And I find the exact same thing. I'll be going through, everyone goes through ups and downs and stuff, and you're not having a great day, but it's the same thing. I'll go into a meeting and you take your eyes off yourself, you put it on clients, and you talk about how, you can help them meet their goals. And you come out of there and you're like, this is the best therapy ever.
Totally. Yeah. I like that. You take your eyes off yourself. Yeah. It's really important.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe tell me some of the things that you enjoy doing around Vancouver that, living in Ontario, you might not have had the opportunity to do.
Totally. For me, especially like winter, sometimes you got to kind of grin and bear it here. It's really not that bad in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, maybe elaborate a little bit on that, because that is a negative that
totally.
It rains, it's depressing. Tell me what you do to kind of remedy that.
I mean, I'm a ski girly, so not only with this job now, I am working a lot of weekends, so I do find that does occupy a fair bit of my time. But yeah, getting up to Whistler, I know a lot of folks that go up to the local mountains in the evenings. I learned how to ski in Ontario on the smaller hills, which I'm so grateful for. I cannot imagine trying to learn how to ski at Whistler. But it is just, it's so much more accessible here. Like Whistler, 2 hours up. Ideally, if the Lionsgate cooperates properly, 2 hours home. It's a day trip. I think that part is awesome. And yeah, you just find ways to fill the time. You have to stay social during the winters because it can be a bit tough and it can be isolating. You feel a little sleepy because the days are so short. But it honestly goes by really quickly, and there's a ton to do in the city otherwise. Like, you can go for a little dance, you can have a nice dinner. There's still a lot of things that are I would say even easier to do in the winter for those reasons, because people are actually in town, they're not fleeing from Vancouver to go enjoy the weather elsewhere. So but then again, I also know a lot of people that could not handle that piece. They needed the sun. But I would definitely take rain and the mild winters over, like my nose freezing off in Toronto and sun.
100%. 100%. I'm the same. I would take rain and gray over minus 30.
Totally.
Absolutely. So maybe I kind of cut you off there, but tell me a little bit more summer wise. Like, you fell in love with the summers. What are some of the things that you love doing here?
For the summers, it's just honestly, just being physically in Vancouver in the summer is so amazing, because where I am now, in Davie Village, Sunset Beach is like a 3-minute walk away. And then, you bike up to Third, you've got Second Beach, Kits Beach. There's just this lineup of beaches all the way across, and it just is so wonderful. There's, of course, I find, especially when you move here initially, you want to do every hike, every, local expedition. And then as you kind of settle into being here, you do have to kind of get yourself back out to doing those things. But yeah, there's so much hiking to do around here. You can easily get camping situations sorted. But there are also a lot of really fun local events, like day dance parties. Public disco is such a fun event. We're going to that soon. And it's such an amazing support of local artists, local DJs, and such a good showcase of the city itself. Just things like that. I mean, it really makes you appreciate the people that make up Vancouver as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've talked a lot about what is amazing in this city, and I think you and I would both agree. Like, I'm so grateful that I moved here and I love it. But there's pros and cons to living everywhere. What are some of the things that maybe you don't love about the city, or that you would kind of share for people considering moving here that aren't that great?
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is, of course, the bridge traffic. It can be
Mm,
really challenging. So people that, are living out a little bit farther, commuting into the city, it's tough. Like, I've never had to do that on a regular basis. I'm really grateful that I haven't, because when I
yeah,
was doing the commute, it was against traffic. That said, I wouldn't say it's any worse than if you were sitting on the DVP in Toronto.
yeah,
I think it's relative, and I think a lot of people, it's easy to rag on the traffic for sure.
yeah.
I've in the area that I live, and I've chosen to live here. I love the location. It is quite loud. I live directly on Davie, and I'm surprised that nothing insane has happened outside my window. All there is always someone like screaming, or someone's honking, or something is happening. So, but the nice thing about, especially downtown too, is even one block over, it's dead silent.
Hmm.
So it's great. And then of course, like the elephant in the room of the affordability.
Yeah,
I think because it's such an amazing city, it's so beautiful. There's so much to offer. I do really just think it comes with the territory. I'm lucky enough to have lived in the space that I've lived for a long time. So I, don't have the same level of rent payments as others, or mortgage payments as others. So I do feel very lucky and privileged to have a little bit more flexibility in that sense.
hmm,
But it is tough. That said, I think there are a lot of other places, that are a bit more affordable if you're open to living in slightly different areas of Vancouver, like East Van, South Vancouver. There's still options.
yeah,
And hopefully at some point we see things level out a little bit when it comes to rental prices.
yeah.
You can't actually do many things in Vancouver if you don't have a little bit of disposable income and you're putting it all into the place that, you don't even spend that much time overall.
Yeah. Yeah, I would totally agree with you there. It is one of those things. It's so attractive, which comes with the higher prices. So, is there anything that any advice that you would encourage people that are considering moving here, knowing that it is expensive? You moved provinces, so anything that you would have done differently, maybe, or
That's a really good question. I think I would have. So another way that I keep things pretty affordable is that I have a roommate. So I think before the rental prices really shot up, if I had known that that would have been the case, I probably would have tried to find maybe a studio or something a little bit earlier on.
yeah,
Um, Otherwise, there's nothing that I can think of that I necessarily would have done differently. But yeah, it's sort of like, your hindsight 2020 kind of
yeah,
thing. But yeah, other than that, it just kind of is what it is.
yeah, for sure. You make it work.
Yeah, definitely.
I guess we'll start to wrap up here, but one of the big questions that I do want to ask you is, how can people best support you in your business right now? Like, what opportunities are you looking for, and what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Oh, thank you for asking.
Hmm.
I so what basically I find is the most relevant to California closets designers in Vancouver is really supporting our clients with the limited space that they have. So that
Hmm.
is definitely something that we see like 90% of the time. It's people that have limited space. So I always say to clients when they say, oh, we just have a small space, or it's just the one space, like, no, it's really important to me to get this right for you, because it's going to make a difference to you.
Hmm.
So that's the biggest piece. I find a lot of our marketing is not necessarily geared towards the things that we are actually doing on a regular basis. So it's something that, if you reach out, you even want to just a general chat about the space, what we could potentially do. Ideally, we want to come to your place and actually take a look at the space itself. There's almost always room for improvement there. And then we work with a rendering program as well, a 3D CAD that would allow you to actually generate the design on the spot. So yeah, I think just it goes hand in hand with living in Vancouver in limited space, especially if you want to save a bit and you have a smaller space, you need to maximize every little bit and piece. So it definitely keeps us busy.
Absolutely. And I tell that to clients that are moving, especially from, provinces like Alberta or Saskatchewan, where you have more space and you're used to living in a 1,500 square foot or 1,000 square foot condo or townhouse. And then you're downsizing to maybe a condo that is 600 square feet. And it's really hard for people to wrap their head around downsizing that. And so I always recommend, there's so many options that even I've learned about that will maximize space. And the other thing I thought was interesting that I'll mention here as well is that we chatted a while back just about the perception that you're not just a luxury designer. There's different budgets that you work with. So maybe just quickly chat about kind of budget options for people.
Totally. Yeah. And it's funny that you mentioned that piece, especially folks coming from other provinces, coming from Alberta, where there's a lot more space. I have a realtor contact. She's amazing. She had connected me with clients who were coming from Alberta. And she said that her client, when she first saw the closet, she cried. I can't live here. I can't live here. And my contact had said, oh my gosh, don't worry. I've got a girl. She'll come in and we can double this space immediately. So yeah, it's funny that you say that because I think about that story a lot. So in terms of budgets for us, yeah, it's, again, the marketing is often geared towards very grandiose type spaces. I would say a lot of what we see from a job size is, one reach-in closet. I can do a reach-in closet for $1,200. I can do it for $8,000. There's so much of a range. It depends on comfort level, how much you actually want to invest in the project, what you want it to look like. There's so many things here, but the ultimate goal is to get you California Closets, get you the brand name, the quality, everything that comes with working with an industry starting company without making it seem like it's going to be too expensive or it's, out of range or, my project's too small. So there it is very much still, a luxury brand that should be accessible to many, many, many people because it makes such a difference.
I think that's fantastic. Well, awesome. We'll wrap things up here. Thank you so much for joining me, Kayla.
Thank you.
And thank you all for watching. As you guys all know, I love helping people make moves within our city here, but my second favorite thing to do is connecting all the incredible people within it. My goal with this series, again, is to highlight what it's like to live, work, play, and invest in Vancouver and connect all the amazing people within it. So if you know anyone who shares a unique perspective on living in Vancouver, I'd be so grateful if you could connect me with them. All my info is in the description box below. I'll make sure to put Kayla's info in the description box below as well, so you can reach out to her. And please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to this video, and we'll see you all next week where I'll be back with another interesting guest.